All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Seven continents, 7 billion people. Yes, we're here again. It's Atlanta Discuss. Yes, too much happening, too many things happening in Africa, all over the world. But yes, I have my brother here, my friend, an erudite scholar, the best you can get anytime. Professor Chris Mustafa Nwaokobia Jr., country first, the man at the forefront, former presidential aspirant. We can go on and on and on. It's not new to you, but then when we really need to break it down, say it the way it is, go for the jugular, no holds bare, we go to him. Professor Chris Mustafa Nwaokobia, welcome to Atlanta Discuss.
It's my pleasure, my brother. Ade, how are you doing?
Oh, fine, fine, fine. Good to see you again. Yeah. I
The
cut
pleasure
my
is
beard.
mine.
You are still keeping yours. Yeah.
My pleasure,
All right. So
bro.
it's our tradition. We don't waste time. We just go for the jugular. So many things are happening, and all that. But former military president Ibrahim Babangida wrote a book. I'm sure we've all read it. And I've listened to you in some other interviews. We've shared thoughts on it. And I mean, during June 12, you played a strategic role. So, and most of things we discuss when we bring you here, you're not third party. You're always first party in most of it. That's why you are always a go-to person for me when we need clarity on so many matters. So on that book, yeah, there's been a lot of here and there, wrong and right and all that. But is there any good reason? Did Babangida tell us anything new in that book? That would be my first question. Is there anything new? Is there something he told us that we don't know before?
Ade, I think that that book was an effort to rewrite history.
Mm,
Almost everything he talked about in that book, Nigerians know, and Nigerians have moved
mm,
on, if you like, beyond the tendentious and pretentious and pharisaical tendencies that he put out. Let me say this clearly that apart from mischief makers, Nigerians have
mm,
always known that the January 15th, 1966 coup was not an Igbo coup. Apart from mischief makers, Nigerians are aware that, yes, there were people who were of Igbo extractions, but
mm,
when a Yoruba man, a very bold and proud Yoruba man, wrote the five majors while we struck, he did
mm.
say in no uncertain terms that that coup had no tribal leaning.
That was
And
Ademoyega, right?
that was Ademoyega. And
Yeah.
interestingly, the mission of that coup was to put Chief Obafemi Awolowo in power because he appeared in the First Republic to have been the most clear-headed of our independence paladins, I mean my choice of
Mm,
words. So it was clearly about seeing if they could ultimately end up with Awolowo as the head of state because he taught them quite a lot of lessons. He taught Nigerians quite a lot of lessons in leadership. So they thought that to take Nigeria to the top, Awolowo should be there in power and steer the ship of state. So for a potch that most of us already knew, and don't forget that at that point, Awolowo had been charged to court for treasonable felony. And remember Justice Mimo and the
mhm.
likes. Along with Awolowo was Paena Horo, may God bless his soul. Then he was a young man, and several other people. So what IBB tried to do was rewrite history, revisit history for perhaps his own good, because not only did he think that that will buy the emotions and the sympathy and perhaps the sentiments of the Igbo people, he also thought that that will help befuddle, I mean my choice of words here again, that will help bemuse, bewilder,
Mm.
and make the Igbos dance back to him. He also thought that putting that in the records would mean like, but you ask yourself, who advised IBB to write that memoir? That's been my question. Who advised him to try to revisit and rewrite history? Because what he was trying to do, if it took him 6 decades, almost 6 decades, 1966, he was already in the army, up till 2025, to tell Nigerians that that coup was not an Igbo coup, then he must be up to some mischief. That's what Nigerians should actually ask. And then it took him another 32 years to come to admit that the June 12th election of 1993 was won by Chief Emeka Abiola. Then waiting for 32 years means that he's also up to some mischief. One other thing that bothers the carapace of my mind is the fact that he went denying knowledge as to what happened to that brilliant journalist, late Delegiwa. And that parcel bomb, if you don't remember, was novel to our history. That October 19th, 1986 or what? I can't remember exactly that day.
Yeah.
Yes, but October 19th, I can't forget that day because that happened to have been the day my son was born in 2002. That October 19th novel occurrence in our historicity, where a parcel bomb was sent to a journalist in his office
Yeah,
and mowed him
1986, you're
down.
right.
Yes, that is a very terrible and tragic situation, and he denied it. He denied knowledge of what happened. But we also know, and I say without equivocation, that the witch cried last night. The child dies this morning, and you're left with your conjectures. If Delegiwa was about to break a story that had to do with him directly or indirectly, and don't forget that the certain Gloria Ocon was said to be IBB's late wife's best friend. And you know the whole story. The and then IBB comes after decades to tell us that he didn't know anything about what happened to Delegiwa. I think he's up to some mischief, and Nigerians are not going to let these things lie. When people keep living in the illusion that Nigerians are lazy at research, when they keep living in the illusion that Nigerians have the big man syndrome, when they keep living in the illusion that Nigerians have what you call this Stockholm syndrome as pervasive, when they keep living in the illusion that Nigerians will not ask questions, I'm sure that they're bloodily surprised. I'm sure that they are surprised to their bones that because so many other people who have been thinking of writing books in that dimension. So many other people who are thinking that, oh, they can choose to rewrite history in the name of autobiographies or memoir, will perhaps put their tail in between their legs, because the truth is that Nigerians are not going to suffer fools gladly. Nigerians are going to ask fundamental questions, and that's what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Ade, don't forget that June 12th is dear to my heart because I
I
was a
know.
young man. I was a young man when we constituted a youth council for Chief Emeka Abiola's campaign. We were involved in that campaign day and night, and we did our best to ensure that Chief Emeka Abiola won that election resoundingly. When that election was annulled by the evil genius and the Maradona, who is trying to rewrite history, we went out to the streets. And on the streets, Abacha's goons and guns came after us. Young boys and young girls were mowed down in their prime. And years after, you're not even admitting with an apology. You're telling us you're taking responsibility. Is it talking to children? Then we were boys, now we're men. Is it talking to kids? And a few days ago, I was in one TV interview, and tears came down my cheek, not just because I'm that emotional, but the fact that I'm very close to the young man who led the mad plane hijack in 1994. That's the movement
Oh,
against
okay. Nigerian
dictatorship.
Airways.
Yes, Richard Ogunderu. And for years now, I've been responsible for a chunk of his upkeep. And for months now, I've been responsible for his medicals. These young boys, there are about four still alive and here at home in Nigeria. These young boys are terribly, terribly affected by a society that had moved on. They spent 10 years in prison. And they're back here, nobody's talking about them. And the man who directly led to the actions that made these passionate patriots take the action that they took as young men is coming to proudly, like he's talking to schoolboys. Are we schoolboys? I think that IBB should cover his face in shame. When he's truly penitent, he should come talk to Nigerians, take responsibility, apologize for what he did, and atone for it instead of endowing a presidential library because he never was a president. Ade, we must correct history and teach our children the right thing. IBB has no legal right, no moral right, no right whatsoever to build a presidential library. He was not elected by the people. He was not a president. He was a military head of state. And so we will not allow that which is wrong. And interestingly, since I introduced that line in the debate, so many people are going to court against him, because he does not have the right whatsoever to uh, endow or build a presidential library.
Interesting. The next thing I'm going to talk about right now, because I was going to ask a follow-up, but you've already answered my follow-up. Like you were reading my mind. But let's talk about Abacha. On the annulment, a lot was put at the doorstep of Abacha. Abacha is not alive now. You understand? I mean, which is unfair anyway. But I've been privileged to have read some other memoirs. Professor Omoru is dead, but I read Tales of June 12th. And it was a book I read over and over and over. And in my opinion, Tales of June 12th gave the best description of what happened pre and post annulment, especially the mind of IBB. There were scenarios. There was a particular scenario the prof said he went to meet IBB. He noticed that he was alone after the annulment, that he didn't have visitors like before. That he was compelled to ask him that, what about the guard? What about your security? And IBB said the guards are there. He now asked him, who will guard the guards? The Babangida could not respond. There's another scenario on issue of Abacha, retiring Abacha and all that. And he said, I think IBB said something like, Sonny can plan coups and stop coups. If Sonny doesn't want Abiola, so be it. You understand? So, I mean,
Mm.
now if you say blame it at the doorstep of Abacha, I think it's spurious to put it mildly, and they think we are so indolent, we don't read history, we've forgotten everything. So what's my question on this is that I haven't blamed it on Abacha being late now. What do you think the government of Nigeria should do in relation to June 12th today? Should they give Abiola the right of place as a former president, compensate his family, or how do you think the country should address it going forward?
Now, let me say this clearly that
Mhm.
our immediate past president, Muhammadu Buhari, had
Buhari
done most of that. Yes,
already, yeah.
he recognized Chief M. Abiola of blessed memory as
Mm,
a former president and
mm,
gave him the highest honor,
mm.
albeit posthumously.
Posthumously, yeah.
And then King Gibe was there and conferred the right as former vice president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Mm,
And what is important for me is that Nigerians must learn to call a spade by its name. Badamasi Babangida Ibrahim, the former head of state, um, was absolutely cowardly in referring and putting the whole bulk at Abacha's table. If it was clearly true and obvious that Abacha didn't want Abiola and didn't want the recognition of the freest and the fairest election in our historicity, all IBB should have done as a commander in chief of the armed forces was to retire Abacha. Abacha
mm,
wasn't going to come back from retirement to overthrow him. What is important here, as you and I speak, Ade, is the fact that um, Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, former head of state, was only trying to play the ostrich, was only trying to divert the blames, was only trying to mitigate the blames.
mm,
The truth is that in another interview a few years ago with the CNN or so, or was it BBC, he had admitted proudly
mm,
that the reason he annulled June 12th was because a few individuals and traditional rulers didn't want Abiola as
yeah.
president. Now to come and place the whole buck at the late Abacha's table when Abacha is not here to defend himself is absolutely cowardly.
Mm,
It's a display in cowardice. It's shambolic. It's
mm,
it smacks of because I want to say this that a general, one of the words he used was that he didn't want to be killed. A general who's scared and afraid of death, so much
Mm,
so that it didn't matter to him whether the our collective patrimony was wasted in a botched election. A general who wasn't ready to die for right. A general who wasn't ready to do wrong, to undo wrong. He's not a general. And I think that going forward, the Federal Republic of Nigeria must learn to appreciate people and then open a hall of shame for those who undermine our collective integrity. Open a hall of shame for those who are unpatriotic. Open
mm,
a hall of shame for the likes of Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida. And this is clearly my advice going forward. If we want to build a country that will grow patriots, if we want to create a country and grow a country that will have statesmen, if we want to grow a country that respects the rule of law, now what government should be doing is interrogating IBB on 4 lines. Why did he waste our collective patrimony to conduct an election that he knew he wasn't going to uh, uphold? Two, why did he wait for so long to make admissions as to, and then don't forget that
mm,
an, a corollary to the first point is the fact that the annulment of June 12 led to the death of young people across the country. People
mm,
lost businesses, people lost lives and limbs. And so, if we must, as a people, want to do right, we must call Ibrahim Babangida to account for it. And let me tell you also that, as point number three, you must create monuments of reference and monuments of deterrence. That's what my father told me a long time ago, Ade. And all over the world, that's what countries are doing if they want to go move forward. The past president of Brazil is going through trial.
mm,
The past president of France has gone through trial.
mhm,
Even the present prime minister of Israel is going through trial. If you want to move countries forward, you do not have big men. You have strong institutions. You cannot watch IBB smile and sheepishly admit to cowardice, and then you have men of his generation around him applauding him. Applauding what? Do you know what? Keeping quiet for decades. And that's why I think that people like Gowon should go cover their faces in shame. Do
mm,
you know what decades of non admission or lack of forthrightness has cost Nigeria? Do you know what the Igbos went through as a
mm,
result of the first military coup in this country being adjudged an Igbo coup? Do you know that not debunking it early enough was a direct issues that led to the Civil War?
mm,
Because the northern masses felt that Igbos hated them so much, and that
mm,
was why they killed their leaders. Tafawa
mm,
Balewa, who was prime minister, and Amadu Bello, who was the premier of the northern region. Do you know what not admitting and not clearing the air has cost this country? As you and I talk, in the north, there is still a sizable degree of Igbo hate. In this country, there's still a sizable degree of phobia based on a wrong information. And Gowon did not bother to clear the air. IBB did not bother to clear the air. Dan Juma did not bother to clear the air. I think all these men should cover their faces in shame. You know, I think that moving forward as a nation, we must be forthright, we must be sincere, we must be patriotic, and we must be truthful. The only way to make our country great again is first to understand that Nigerians and indeed the political class must learn to call a spade by its name.
absolutely. I agree with you. I mean, Atlanta this is a discussion. Sometimes we also have an opinion on this thing. I've been privileged, like I said earlier on, to read some memoirs. I think I read Oluri, Shepildi, Chris Ali, and I think one of the things that were synonymous in most of those books was that some of them felt that IBB was wasting the time of Nigerians by creating SDP, NRC, and the transition to civil rule, that they knew there was a Khalifa in Abacha, who was going to take over. There was already an agreement. So they felt I mean, some even said that Abacha felt that why was IBB lying to these people? We're not going. You will do your time, I'll take over. There's no point wasting people's time. So I think that was almost clear in a lot of memos. And when you look at all these, I wouldn't say inconsequential, but they're all consequential retired general, maybe some military administrators, AFRC members, they've all written something, economical with the fact, but there were areas where they were bold, and you could see clearly that there was never going to be a conclusion to that transition anyway, unfortunately.
Ade,
Mm.
IBB took us on a merry-go-round.
It did.
Ade,
It
IBB
did.
knew where he was heading from the start.
Mm.
Ade, IBB was not in any way patriotic. His love for country was synonymous with
Mm.
the love for Ibrahim, his love for Babangida, his love for Badamosi. Those were his love. He
Mm.
never cared about what happened to the masses of our people. He wasn't interested in taking our country from the nada to promise. He etched corruption on our collective canvas, and I'm unable to allow him rest after that effort to rewrite history. It's shambolic, it's disrespectful. Who told him that Nigerians are that gullible that he could just sit down and read a script and think that we'll just go back to our homes and keep
Mm.
quiet?
Mm.
We'll call him out. The spirit of the dead on account of June 12th, we'll call him out. The spirit of the dead on account of Oswa Abiola when people ran out of Lagos and thinking that Armageddon was about to unfold. We'll call him out. Those who lost businesses will call him out. And I want to say, as an advice to the minders of the presidency and to the minders of the several political people in the image of the former military head of state Ibrahim Babangida, they should be careful because karma is increasingly becoming impatient.
Mm.
God couldn't have blessed this country with amazing resources and riches ineffable to allow our people remain in poverty.
Mm.
God is not dead. It was one of my mentors that said in no uncertain terms, I mean Nelson Rolicha Mandela, that when men try to play God, the universe laughs. When men try to direct the affairs of man to favor their individualistic ends, the universe laughs. Because ultimately, there's a force that controls the universe, and that force is biased against evil. That force is biased against those who oppress people, and that force is for the success of humanity. And I want to say without equivocation that those who think that they can keep the Nigerian people down in perpetuity are going to they are going to be shocked because God they are going to be shocked because God is on the throne watching over the affairs of man.
Interesting. You know, I'm sure we'll agree that when you say owners of Nigeria, it's no more a cliche. Now we know that there are powerful men that sit down somewhere and decide who will be president, who will be the next president, who will get this, who will get what. I mean, even from the IBB book launch, you could hear almost all the launchers say so many things. One said, you made all of us who we are. One said you created the private sector. I think that was the richest one. So everybody has that to say, which explain why these owners of Nigeria's control. Now, my point now is this, yeah. We don't know, nobody has written a list of who the owners of Nigeria are, but clearly, if we guess, you know that IBB is one of them, General OBJ is one of them, General Abdul Salami is there, there may be General Gusso and General Danjuma, at least those five. They are very wealthy people, and people go, you see Atiku always going to Gusso, even our Peter Obi goes to Mina, nobody goes to see IBB without seeing Abdul Salam. Even the first lady, everybody goes on pilgrimage in Mina. We know our Baba Obasanjo is a Leviathan. He's a primus in so many regards. There's no conflict in Africa. If he gets there, he solves it. So they seem to be working very well together compared to maybe people like us and the middle class and what have you. And they are still in charge, which explain why that book launch had so much participation, made about 16 billion and all that. So the issue is this, these guys are still running things. They are still in charge. I mean, and the country is not doing well. I mean, now Buhari probably is the latest to join them. I think maybe even he is living in isolation or whatever. But can Nigeria ever get out of its current morass with these people still running things? Will we ever have a free and fair election? Will the people ever decide who they want their leaders to be? Because it looks like we've said, our elections are just a mere process that whoever is going to get there may have been chosen. Can we get out of all this? It seems like it's June 12 2.0 or 3.0, so to
Ade,
say.
Ade, the answer is yes.
Mm,
There's a lifespan for everything. There's a lifespan for larceny. There's a
mm,
lifespan for evil. It was one of the greatest American poets a long time ago, in the 19th century, who wrote a poem, The Present Crisis, James Russell Lowell, who said, "Truth on the scaffold, falsehood on the throne. That same truth sways the future, for behind the darkness, the dim unknown, standeth God in the shadow, keeping watch above his own." I tell you that no matter how much, and with all sense of respect, our Igbo Dele Momodu had written about the owners of Nigeria, and I called a few names, and
mm,
those names were amongst the names you called. But
mm,
let me also tell you that the real owners of Nigeria are the masses of this
mm,
country. And the masses will rise someday very soon. It has happened across the world. It
mm,
was so bad for Singapore before the universe
mhm.
deployed Lee Kuan Yew.
True.
It was so bad for China before Sherman Mao and the revolution came. It was so bad for the United States until that preacher from Atlanta,
Mm.
interestingly, the name of your media, when that preacher from Atlanta,
Martin
Georgia,
Luther, yeah.
came, before he led the civil rights revolution, women couldn't vote. Before he led the civil rights revolution, some blacks couldn't vote. And he told America that God will judge America if it doesn't do right. And um, a few years after, just about 40 years or so after, a black man in the name of President Barack Obama emerged from the trolls and became the president of the United States of America. There's always a lifespan for the mess happening in our country. And watch it, Ade. It's not going to be too far from now. You will find out that we have a generation of young people, they call them the Gen Z, who are very impatient with the waste of our collective patrimony. You see them speaking out on the social media by way of skits, by way of media releases, by way of arguments, by the way of diatribes. They're taking different shapes and forms. Remember a few years ago, it was the NSAS protestation in 2020. And remember just last year, it was the young people rising up in the name of end bad governance. Are they and IBB couldn't believe that he was going to have the kind of ricochet effect, albeit young people lampooning the effrontery at rewriting, his effrontery at trying to rewrite history. Other young people remember what happened in 2022, 2023, the emergence of the obedient movement.
Mm,
So many of us who were leaders at that level didn't even believe that these young people were going to have the kind of energy that they brought to bear. Don't forget that at some point, those of the traditional political class, those of the traditional political tendency, said that they were young people, two or three young people tweeting in a room. And
mm,
before their very eyes, it became a monstrous and a monumental movement. I'm confident that the universe hasn't abandoned Nigeria. I'm confident that there is a turnaround just before us. I'm confident that the 2027 election will be extremely different from the 2023 elections because these young people are getting bolder and stronger. They are beginning to understand that rather than agonize, what they must do is organize.
Organize.
Are they every day? I get calls from them. I get invitation to come speak, encourage, talk to them. Yesterday, I got as much as three. And these young groups are indiscriminate of ethnicity.
Mm,
Some are from the north, some are from the south, some are from the southeast. It's a monstrous movement, understanding that the Almighty God has blessed this country with amazing resources and that a few men, less than 2% of our population, amassing our collective wealth to themselves and their children. And they're saying no, never ever again. They're saying no, we can't continue this way. And they're looking for a true leader who's ready to lay down his life if need be for the republic and the nation that we want. So I'm confident that if these owners of Nigeria, quote and unquote, are unwilling to let go, they will be forced to let go. Because there's this old cliche, power is not served a la carte. People
mm,
must take responsibility for power. A few days ago, somebody sent me a message. I love what you're doing, but who will bail the cat? And I
mm,
said to him, we will all bail the cat. You wake up and play your own role. If you can't join in the marches, support with your resources. If you can't join in the protests, pray for those who are protesting. If you can't come out on the day of strike, buy water and send to those who are striking. The time has come for all of us to step up. It was Martin Luther King Jr. who said that you just must move. If you can't run, crawl. If you can't run, if you can't crawl, walk. If you can't walk, run. If you can't fly, just keep moving because that's the language of the universe. We must redefine the foundations of our country. We must refocus collectively our energy at building a country that will truly make not only us proud, but generation next proud. I'm confident that we shall have a new republic on our hands sooner rather than later.
Amen. We're all optimistic, albeit slightly, and you know. So you said something that really interested me. You said power is not served a la carte, and you know it's true. The last person I heard said that was current president of Nigeria, Bola Tinubu. You know, and he said, "Yeah, the power is not served a la carte." And subsequently, he said you have to grab it and run with it. Now it's going to be in power for almost 2 years. How do you assess his journey thus far, his presidency?
More propaganda
Mm.
than proper direction of governmental policies,
Mm,
more of half truths than forthrightness, more of throwing a wool in the air than throwing tractors and hoes in the streets. It's just been about talk, 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 and less action. Adi, let me
mm,
say this. They told us that the state of security is improving. Adi, statistics are saying otherwise. Adi, before he got to power, um, the bandits went boldly writing letters to communities and telling them to pay for protection. But Ade is a more common thing today in the Northeast and the Northwest. The rate of kidnap and ransom has become a new big business in Nigeria. I can't see, I really can't see, not because I don't like President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I haven't seen a reduction in the level of criminality and banditry. A certain Bello Toji is writing letters and moving from Zamfara to Sokoto, from Sokoto to Kebbi, from Kebbi to Katsina. And the military saying that they're going to find him soon. We've heard that for about 6 months. I did there's some clear thing about the Tinubu administration that bothers me. There's a magical, monstrous, and monumental depletion of our collective psyche morality, and values. And when you're talking about justice, people are laughing.
Mm.
When you're talking about proper values, people are laughing. When you're talking about dignity and decency, people are laughing. And you know why? Because they tell you that Aso Rock is full of men without values, without integrity, without dignity, and without morality. And Aso Rock is not interested in correcting those wrong impressions. And I'll tell you why. If in 2007, a certain president, may God bless his soul, President Umar Yar'Adua, came to power and admitted that the election that brought him to power was flawed and began the process of electoral reforms, and people hailed him. Another president comes to power in 2023 through an election that was by far more flawed than the 2007 election. He hasn't admitted, he hasn't said sorry, he hasn't sacked the INEC chairman that conducted an election that was adjudged extremely flawed by the international community and the Nigerian media. He hasn't apologized for it. And the man who conducted that election that was monstrously flawed, mortally flawed, an election that was lacking in credibility and integrity, then there's a question for all of us. And this question mark is strong enough to not only demand the immediate sacking of the INEC chairman, it is strong enough to demand a holistic overhaul of our electoral laws.
Mm.
Adding to that is the fact that the Tinubu administration must do less of propaganda, ensures the commitment of this administration to the well-being of the Nigerian people. What do I mean? Just yesterday, they told us while signing the budget 2025, that the economy is on a steady rebound. And when I wanted to send, in the face of horrendous hunger and poverty, I tried to send a text message yesterday, and I found out that instead of 4 naira for a text message, it was now 6 naira. I find out that big businesses are out there to exploit the Nigerian people, and government is not protecting them, even in the face of poverty. Then I think that this government is too removed from the truth, too distant from the people to be able to tell us that they're doing well. I think that the first responsibility of government is to protect the citizenry, to defend the citizenry, and to ensure that there's safety of lives and property. On all scores, I think this government has scored an abysmal low. So I think that going forward, in a few months, it's going to be 2 years of this administration. I think that going forward, this government must surround itself with people. Mr. President must learn from the leadership secret of Abraham Lincoln. This government must surround itself with people who can tell them the truth, not court jesters and sycophants. This government must understand that Nigerians are angrier than ever. They must understand that Nigerians are hungrier than ever. They must understand that save and accept something urgent is done to mitigate the poverty and the hunger in the land. Our search for a peaceful Nigeria and a good republic will be like the wait for Godot.
Wow. So I have 3 more questions for you before we go. But before I go into those 3 questions, just to follow up to the last one, can we, for example, is there any area where we can score Bola Tinubu high so far? Is there any area? I'm trying to be fair to him because I've been accused
In the
of,
area,
not being fair to
in
him.
the area of propaganda and half-truths, yes. In the area of government being very distant from the people, yes. In the area of more talk and less action, yes. And sadly, in the area of government allowing big businesses to exploit the masses of our country. What do I mean? The tariff for electricity that's hardly there is so much. The tariff for telephone and telecommunication is so high, and now they are trying to expand the tax nets So in the area of being very absent and distant from the people, this government has scored high. In the area of propaganda, telling us every day that this government is doing very well, when this government is consistently borrowing and we're not seeing the reasons for which they're borrowing heavily, this government has got a high in
Yeah, I
so
think,
many of the
yeah.
negatives. I don't know where, maybe I could say that the head minister, one or two other ministers, may be focused, party for instance, may be focused in trying to ensure that we have a new and proactive health regime. But
Mm.
yet, still more words than action.
Okay. I mean, I think that personal opinion, I think having Akpabio and Ganduje holding very powerful position in government, I think it's actually an aberration. Yeah, I think it reduces the moral inclination of this government to, to probity and all that. Those guys lack everything credibility. But having said that, let's talk about the obedient movement. I'm seeing some traction here and there. It doesn't look like the obedient movement is still in the Labour Party. I don't know where you are. So let me first ask you. I know you're a man of your own. You're highly opinionated. So are you still in the Labour Party or with Peter Obi or obedient? I mean, how do you describe it? Then I can give you my follow-up.
A votary for truth,
Mm,
a votary for order, a
mm,
votary for good governance, a votary for a new day, a new republic, and a nation that works for all. I belong to everyone and every movement that is genuinely interested in making our country great again. I belong to every tendency that believes that the rule of law must be strictly adhered to. I belong to everybody and every tendency that wants a new day and a new dawn for the masses of our country. I just want Nigeria to work. So, for as long as Peter Gregory is committed to that, for as long as perhaps Kwakwanso and a few others are committed to that, and looking at the need for a proactive coalition to take power from the present order in 2027, I am inclined to every effort to make Nigeria work.
Having been a former presidential aspirant yourself, let me ask you this. For
Candidate,
2027,
candidate,
yeah, candidate.
candidate,
Sorry, no, I withdraw that. Candidate. Not even once. I withdraw that. Don't mind me. When you stay in
yeah,
America
what?
for too long, you forget all. Yeah. So
Mm.
my question is this. What would be your dream team? I mean, from what you've said, there has to be realignment of forces for things to yield. You mentioned Kwankwaso, Obi, Oman, and all that. What would be your dream team to face Tinubu in 2027? I mean, when I say dream team, do you think Atiku president will be VP or Kwankwaso or maybe even El Rufai will be? What would be your dream team? I know you're very, I mean, if you want to, because I know you're a tactician also, and you move mountains once every now and then. So, what would be your dream team?
I think,
Mm,
frankly,
mm,
before God and man, I'm still talking with a lot of people.
okay.
Uh, I'll be able to answer that question frontally and
Mm.
proactively by June, July. Because
Of this year.
at this point, what is
Okay.
important is for
I'll take you
Nigerians.
up on that.
Yeah, what is important is for Nigerians to bury their individualistic aspirations and ambition and forge a strong, proactive coalition for power. What is necessary and important now is for I'm watching and trying to see those who are humble enough to subsume their ego, subsume their ambition, subsume their individualistic demands at the altar of creating a strong coalition that will save our country. So I'm watching clearly at it. I would want a Nigeria that works. I want a man who is ready to give his life for the good of our country. I'm still a member of the Obedient Movement.
Mm,
I am in the P2B's advisory council. My name is there. I love him. There's several other candidates, potential candidates that I love. And I believe that the time has come for us to take our country back and make Nigeria work. But regarding who should be the lead candidate in 2027, Ade, I am still clearly watching. I want to see how we resolve the contradictions around. I want to see how perhaps we're able to reposition the Labour Party. If it is not redeemable, how we're able to cause a coalition of political parties and cause a big measure of parties for the purposes of redeeming our country. I'm sure, like, let me tell you what I'm sure of is that come 2027, Nigerians will have the best candidates on the political kaleidoscope. Nigerians will have a monstrous and very strong political party ready to duel and fight for votes against the APC. And who will lead that onslaught will be the function of uh, the political tendencies that are about to coalesce. Who will lead that onslaught will be the product of a collective decision. Who will lead that onslaught will be the person who is most likely to win the votes. And I believe that as we move on, these issues will be resolved, these questions will be answered.
Okay, in a little bit of June 12 now. In 1999, when General Salam came in after the death of Abacha, we had the transition where we had AD, APP, and PDP. Now, for some reason, even though not written in the Constitution, it was agreed, that the president should come from the Southwest. That's why we had Olufalaye and Obasanjo running together, and of course, OBJ eventually emerged as president for 8 years. Now, back to IBB's memoirs, saying Igbos were not the plotters or the main architect of the 1966 January coup, the for popular Eziogu Ifejuna coup, that it's now public knowledge that even all parties involved that it wasn't an Igbo coup. Do you think, in your opinion, that it is time to have an Igbo president in Nigeria, considering we've not had any since Zik, and Zik, of course, did not have executive power, so to say, his position was ceremonial. So do you think, as an act of good faith, an Igbo president should emerge? Do you think it's time?
To be fair to Nigerians,
Mm-hmm.
they voted an Igbo president in 2023.
Okay,
And
so
so the question isn't whether they will vote an
mm-hmm.
Igbo president. What is
Mm-hmm.
important is for the political class to be humble enough and
Mm-hmm.
forthright enough to allow the people choose who must govern them. And I
Absolutely.
believe that is not so much about the Igbo-ness of a candidate.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the competency, the capacity, and the commitment to the common good. And
Absolutely.
very clearly, we saw Peter Gregory be leading the pack in terms of those denominators
Mm-hmm.
in 2023. I think that, and I want to say clearly, Ade, you know that I'm not a vanguard of ethnic rotation of power, or because I have said time and again, Ade, what if I become the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in 2027? And after one term or two terms, the nation finds my son the most capable and the most competent. If we adhere to zoning of political office, will that not be disservice to their generation?
That's true.
What is important going forward is first, debunk and destroy our fault lines. Take away ethnicity,
Mm-hmm.
take away bigotry, take away religious bigotry, educate our people as to the need for progressive and proactive leadership. And when our people assemble in that parlor, where all the palace tendencies that makes rotation of power and ethnic politics plausible are torpedoed, are thrown overboard. If we gather that parlor where the denominators are competency, capacity, commitment to the common good, and credibility, you find out that this country will come out of the nada to promise. So for me, uh, it's not necessarily a call for an Igbo president in 2027. For me, it's not necessarily a call for a Christian president in 2027. What is for me is a need for a candidate who is competent, who is credible, who has a capacity, and who is committed to the common good. And on that score, Ade, I want to believe that if my people, the Igbos, or if my people from the South, I'm an Igbo from the South,
Mhm.
if we all agree and present the best candidate to the Nigerian people, they will vote him, like they voted Peter Gragrobi. And if we organize rather than agonize, it will be impossible for those who do not mean well for the Nigerian enterprise to rig the election. I think what happened in 2023 was that we were more interested in the groundswell of support and did not work effectively to stop the effort of the spoilers and destroyers of our collective patrimony. We did not work enough to stop them from rigging the elections. And having understood that they seem not to care about our country and that they are planning to repeat that same feat in 2027, what is important is, whilst campaigning and pushing the narrative for a new Nigeria, we continue to develop every effort to ensure that we have a new electoral act that recognizes the use of technology, the use of the beavers effectively, and the use and the need for premium time uploading of results as provided by the Electoral Act. If we have a new regime, a new electoral act, a new tendency at the level of the election umpire, that's INEC, if we have men who are committed to our collective good to pretend the electoral body, then perhaps our march to a new republic will be certain. And so I believe that it's not so much of the Igbo-ness of a candidate. It should be more about the competency, the capacity, and the commitment of that candidate to the well-being of the masses of our people.
Yeah. So what gives you confidence that, I mean, clearly the last presidential election, like I always say in the past, our elections were free, but never fair. Now they're not free, they're not fair. So what gives you that confidence that in 2027 that things will be different? Because you're speaking 2027, you're sure the people, the Gen Z will do what they have to do. What gives you I mean, the laws have to change clearly. We cannot go to the next presidential election with the way things are clearly. Well, why are you so sure it will be different?
The people are pushing already.
Okay.
There is a movement and a monstrous effort at ensuring that we have electoral reforms. That's one of the reasons I'm confident. The young people have not stopped mobilizing and pushing. That's one other reason why I'm confident. And then, very importantly, I tell people that as a mystic, I see the hand of God in the affairs of man. And those who undermine that are the ones who are almost always surprised at certain outcomes. It was that same hand of God. Nelson Release Lala Mandela is a mystic too. And when they asked him how he survived 27 years in prison, he said every morning when he wakes up, he sees a new South Africa in the horizon. And let me tell you, Ade, every time I wake up, I hear a voice say to me, there's a new Nigeria in the horizon. And that's why almost always when I sign off some of my piece, you see that cliche, I am Chukwudumebi. Chukwudumebi simply means, and that's one of my names, it means God sustains me, God leads the way. And I tell you, no matter how much the spoilers and the owners of Nigeria machinate and scheme for 2027, their knowledge and their tact will be short compared to what the Nigerian people are building and cooking for 2027. Are they in the year of our Lord 2027, Nigerians will torpedo wickedness. In the year of our Lord 2027, it will be a ballot-based revolution against wickedness and evil. 2027 will give birth to a new tendency, a new republic, and a new day. And this is not just being overly hopeful. It's about issues and faith rooted on reality. rooted on the clear statistics that we have on our hands. Have you noticed, Adi, that the more the operators of the present republic see falsehood as an act of state, the more our young people bring out the truth and throw them everywhere across the social media, the more they try to gaslight us, the more the young people are saying, no, you can't gaslight us. The more they think that throwing monies in the air will shortchange our ability to revolt against them, the more the young people are saying, no, 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 you can't throw my money on me and think that I'll act like a slave. I think that there is a new republic in the horizon. Are they over my head? I see the redemption of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Over my head, I see a new republic in our hands. And I am confident that it will happen not because we're the strongest of people, but because the Almighty God has blessed us, giving us all that we need to make this country great again.
Fantastic. Thank you for your time always. We've had a fantastic time. You've shed more light on it. You've given people that don't have hope some semblance of hope. And hopefully this will reignite the office of the citizens of Nigeria, a position that's been abdicated by almost all concerned for reason best known to them. So Professor Christopher Mustafa Chukwudu, maybe right? Nwaokobia Jr. Thank you for coming
That's
to
right.
Atlanta. Yeah,
That's
thank you
right.
so much. So to our viewers,
Adi,
wherever you may
God bless
be,
you.
yeah,
God bless
thank
you, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Amen. Amen. To all our viewers, you see our man, it's done justice again. See you next week. Take care. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.